And welcome back, everybody. We're now into the final session of the day now. I've been having a fantastic time listening in, watching, joining in the last one as well. But this is the one which I've really been looking forward to. Now, as you know, I'm the head of the Digital Garage at BT. This session is all about pushing that digital frontier. And so digital is such a key part of BT and of BT Source that Cyril, our CPO, caught up with Harmeen, our Chief Digital and Innovation Officer at BT, for a good conversation on Monday evening, just gone. We recorded it, really fascinating session. So we're going to watch that right now and then come back into our panel session in a few minutes' time.
So, Armin, it's very good to have you with us today. So we had a very long day already, and we are discussing about the future of procurement, but as well the future of technology. Fantastic. You are definitively someone super well known in the technology space, and especially on the digital. Yeah. So we are partnering because at one point of time, so I'm buying for you.
Yes.
But you're developing and deploying as well,
Absolutely.
so new apps for me. So what is in it for you in BT Source? So what are you expecting from us?
I think one of the things I'm really trying to challenge with the new digital team is also our concept of new technology and embracing new technology versus creating a culture that doesn't say that just because I'm using open source, I'm putting the company more at risk. I mean, I can't understand and fathom that, because in fact, by using open source, I have got better control of that technology, but I've got a very different cost model as well. I'm not captive with anybody. The choice is more on me rather than doing some of the contracts that you and I have inherited.
I believe that's what you want to do, like we have done to a certain extent with the BT Procurement Garage. It's breaking the stuff, but breaking the stuff for better stuff as well.
Absolutely, and I think we've got to, this is where I feel that the two teams have to be almost, on the same, not only on the same wavelength, but highly aligned on how to go and work together. And at the same time, it's also as looking at the partnerships and the new contracts that we are doing and drive a full reciprocity model so that they're also doing a joint go-to-market with us and they have as much skin in the game in our success as we do. And I really like the way our teams are working together on the hyperscalers and driving that. It's buying at the right price, as well as how the model is going to change as you move more to the cloud and not. And that techno-commercial decision, how we make that together, I think that's very important. And then also helping the businesses drive GTM. We've got to cover all three bases.
Yeah, and I believe as well, so meaning that when it comes to, let's say, customer experience, so meaning that's obviously our customer experience, but us as procurement as well, so we're trying to be better at when you are using our services. So what is your focus on, and more actually experience as well on customer experience, and what you want to bring to the table?
I think the best, or maybe the not so best part of my job is everybody is a customer. So the end customer are our customers, because that's where we get revenue from. And as the world shifts and adopts more and more digital, and as we also grow our digital channels, these channels actually now act as if they are the end field force or the sales force, and they have to be intuitive enough and be personalized enough to understand each customer individually. And using a lot of machine learning and AI, we've got to develop that level of almost intuition within these channels to be able to adapt as a customer is going through the journey, to be able to understand that, okay, he's liking this product more, he's not liking that, I've got to tweak this. And making those journeys far more interactive and dynamic and doing all of that. And the same experience is what we should be giving to our colleagues as well. My own experience of how I interact and do my job should also be highly digital.
And so we created as well the BT Procurement Garage to engage with the startup. So I know that you're very much into the startup world. I know that that's a big stuff for you, big stuff for BT as well. Can you just share with us as well, so your vision on that?
So one of the areas we're trying to focus on is we cover all three horizons. We have got a big focus on sorting out today, a big focus on working with businesses to build digital solutions and platforms for tomorrow. But also we're trying to do a lot of some Horizon 3 stuff as well, and trying to play with the new revenue streams. And we've created like a startup accelerator. And it basically means we're finding and scouting the right startups in areas that we feel are best suited for them to work with BT in two areas. One is either it plays on an adjacent strength of ours that we can expand, whether it's healthcare or drones and some of the experiments we're doing in incubation over there. Or it is in areas like we're working in either in security or some of the other areas which are already our strengths, or we can bring them onto our marketplaces and do a joint GTM with them, or use them for our own good and for driving different technology alternatives and so on and so forth. And we're trying to make it easier for these startups to work with us as well, because we don't have a very good reputation.
No,
for
and
working with them.
that's interesting, because when we created the BT Procurement Garage, we find actually that our own procurement process were not really tuned for this kind of
Yes.
company. Now that we have implemented 11 digital platform within procurement, so we've got tools which will enable to work with this kind of company, and especially because cash is really king for this kind of
Yes.
companies, so we will be able to pay them relatively faster, onboarding them as well relatively quickly. So meaning that it's key as well for us to support
Yes.
your digital agenda,
Absolutely.
to tune the way that we are interacting with this startup, which
Yeah,
are
these
key.
small companies, they don't have that much of cash at hand. And at the same time, imagine a small startup who's got 20, 30 people doing that with 2 or 3 organizations like BT. I mean, we'll kill them.
There's no doubt about that. So I hope that all the digital platforms that we have put in place will help them to work with us, to
Yes.
obviously be able to deliver on the agenda of BT, and especially because we are eager to connect for good. And that's what we want to do for all our customers.
Brilliant.
So thank you very much, Armin, for joining us today, sharing your experience as well on the digital side, and looking
Pleasure.
forward to partner with you.
Absolutely. And I must say a big thank you to you and a lot of your team who's doing a great job, because it makes it easier for me to take a lot of these big bets and go and challenge some big stuff. But we've currently got millions and millions or hundreds of millions of contracts we're opening up. So really look forward to working with you as well, Cyril.
Thank you very much, Armin.
Thanks for having me.
Now, I really enjoyed hearing from Harmeen. I was there in person, so I saw the full thing, but it really resonated with me, the stuff that Cyril and Harmeen spoke about with especially startups. And I know that it will for some really great guests that we've got on the screens behind for the next session. So I am hugely, hugely thankful to Natasha, to Kevin, and especially to Eloise for making time to come and run this session. Particularly because I know the time zones that you guys are in, and Eloise in San Francisco, Kevin in Boston, Natasha in London. Thank you for getting up early in the morning. And Eloise, the session is yours. I'm going to hand straight to you with one reminder, and that's that we have Amy in the room with me, who will be taking any questions from anybody who's live and watching as we go through. And so, if we've got any questions coming, then we'll push those into the conversation as well. But Eloise, please, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Adam, Cyril, Amy, for having us. This is going to be a lot of fun. I've been looking forward to this for weeks now since we first talked about it. Just to introduce myself, my name's Eloise. I'm a partner at Kearney. I'm based in San Francisco, so it's a little early here. I do digital procurement, digital supply chain consulting. I am author of my recent book, Trade Wars, Pandemics, and Chaos. What's of particular note is I did many case studies on both BT sourced and fair market, and I will do a follow-on with paid because I really like what Natasha is doing over there. So with that, I would like to have Natasha introduce herself, followed by Kevin, and we'll get jumping into this.
Hi, Louise. Thanks
Natasha?
so much, and it's great to be here. Hi, everyone. It's great to be here. You can now hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Natasha.
Perfect. I think I've got a bit of a delay, sorry. I am co-founder and COO of Paid, and we are there to work with large enterprises and provide procurement automation software to help large enterprises work with their long tail of suppliers, make that process as efficient and smooth as possible for both sides.
Awesome. And Kevin, how about you?
Yeah, thanks, Eloise. I will say the prep session 10 minutes ago, and they said try to stand still and not bounce around. But it's the last session of the day for this conference, so let's have some fun. I might be going in and out of the screen a little bit. So as an intro, Kevin Frechette, co-founder and CEO of Fairmarket. We spent the last 4.5 years essentially demystifying tail spend. So we partner with companies and people like Adam, Searle, British Petroleum, Snowflake, Cabot, kind of across the board, and helping them to automate their sourcing process and really partner with them to get to their digital transformation goals. As a company, we raised $42 million, grown 3x every year, focused heavily on integration, ML, and AI. And we are recently named Fast Company's 10 most innovative companies for the enterprise with Microsoft. So different companies a little bit, but happy to be on the list.
Excellent. Well, I'm going to start with the easy question, and one that is going to elicit some smiles from folks around the world, because this is my favorite topic. So the closed loop suite system, source to pay, is that era is thank you, Adam, is dead. It's dying, it's changing. And both of you created startups that disrupted that. We have entered the best of breed era, and you two are at the forefront of it. So Natasha, I'll ask you first, and then Kevin, you, same question, is what did you see when you 2, 3, 4 years ago? What did you see in the market? Because you did it at a time before it was the thing to do. So what did you see, and why did you start, and what did you think needed disrupting? So Natasha first.
Yeah, thanks, Eloise. So it's really interesting, actually. We initially, Tom and myself, my co-founder and myself, we saw the frustration that small suppliers, and I think Cyril and Harmeen were just talking about this, could face when they work with their clients. And we'd both been in small suppliers' shoes, or been small suppliers, or advised them. And it's, they don't have the infrastructure, small suppliers, to work with and perhaps big companies and deal with those kind of requirements that absolutely justifiably large enterprises have. So onboarding, compliance, contracting, that sort of thing, and just don't have the time to dedicate to that process. So we were looking at it from that perspective, and then we actually got to know a procurement director at BT, and they were mentoring us. And we learned and understood from BT and other clients of ours that large enterprises also struggle with the process of working with smaller suppliers. It's manual, it takes too long, it's frustrating, and it stifles the ability to access innovation and those new suppliers. And that as a follow-on then stifles price competition. So we really felt that we wanted to solve that problem, from onboarding a supplier to helping contract them, and then at the end, making sure they got paid on time. So the way we attack that is having a process automation software that other companies can also plug into to provide some of the other more niche, things like faster express payment, like C2FO, that are working with BT.
Awesome. Same question, Kevin.
Yep. Thanks, Eloise. Trying to make it a little more like we're in person, looking back and talking to different people. So our background, we didn't have a procurement background. And I think that was probably for the best, and that helped out. Because when we went to start the company 4.5 years ago, we were trying to start a completely different company. And what we kind of encountered was we talked to these large enterprises, and we just heard about this idea of tail spend. The fact that it's 80% of the data, 80% of the suppliers, 20% of the budget. And it was just massive, massive area that just wasn't being addressed. And we took a step back and we said, how is this just being ignored today? There's so much opportunity, there's so much value there. And what we realized was just the legacy players weren't purpose-built for that. They were purpose-built to be end-to-end. They haven't drilled down on that area, and they're purpose-built to be more manual and process-oriented, less around how to use data and automate a process, specifically in an area that's so complex with hundreds of thousands and millions of data points. So there's a Hacking Group study that came out just recently that said 75% of companies list tail spend as a priority. And half of those said it's the #1 priority, but those same respondents said that they're still using legacy tools and processes to try to address it. And then they're having the complaint that it's difficult to get clean data. It's difficult to get the end user to engage. It's difficult to get to the business outcomes, which was surprising to some people, but it was wildly obvious to me, where you can't be doing the exact same thing you've always done and expect a different outcome. It just doesn't make any sense. So we took a step back and we said, what are we trying to solve? Like, what are the business goals that companies really want to get out of kind of getting their arms around the tail spend space? And then what tech's available that could drive us there? And then how do we break a process, which I know at BT is like incredible. The fact that they're just like agents of change. Your team wants to constantly figure out how do we get to those outcomes, and it's okay if we break glass a little bit. For us, the process was to look at like what was the flow today, and it was that recs are still being created. So let's create integration to intercept the requisition when it's created. And then let's use machine learning and AI to figure out what is it, what suppliers could source it, and then let's push it back into a process because we still want to respect what's happening in the downstream flow as well. So for us, that's been kind of how we approached it. It's been an absolute journey. And the main thing we're looking for when we're working with companies is who's willing to break glass and to change and break a process, because that's what we're doing.
So let me ask you the follow. Oh, go ahead, Natasha.
I was just going to say, Kevin, I think it's super interesting that none of us have come from a procurement background, because it's a way you can bring a fresh perspective to a process and not necessarily think about the current business processes and how people do things. So I think that's probably why we've both come up with completely different ways of doing things for these large enterprises. Well, it's great.
Yeah, and what's interesting about what you're both saying is Kevin, you have disrupted and made better the buy side experience, and Natasha, you have made a better supplier experience. Even though it's hugely beneficial on the buy side, you actually came to it with your small supplier hat on, and I think Amin and Cyril were talking about that as well. Is it really opens up to a whole new set of suppliers and the ability to not crush them. So let me build on that in both directions. So Natasha, let me ask you about the supplier experience. How do you see that evolving? Because I imagine you work with a lot of small suppliers and you actually make their lives better. And so can you talk about how that has been through COVID and kind of going forward?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, Harmeen and Cyril were talking about one aspect of it earlier, which was making sure that suppliers get paid on time. So one of the things that we have always been really focused on is helping smaller suppliers work with large enterprises by making sure that they don't face the payment term difficulties that understandably large enterprises have long payment terms when they for working capital optimization, but smaller suppliers can't always function on 60 or 90-day payment terms, so that limits their ability to work with companies they would really want to work with because they would be key clients, like a company like BT. So we have an express payment option for suppliers that we use third-party partners to allow us to give that option to suppliers. But that's just the start, I think, for us of what we think should be available for a supplier, for our supplier side of the platform, because there are other parts of working with clients and large enterprises, particularly that suppliers need to have, things like public liability insurance at a limit level that is far higher than a classic smaller company might have, say a 10 million public liability limit. That there should be the ability through some form of marketplace for suppliers to be able to offer each small supplier that works with our buyer clients access to those kind of products at a rate that's much lower than what they would otherwise have to pay. So say an umbrella policy that all suppliers could access. And that's complementary, I think, to what we see as the offering for our buyer side, which is all different types of compliance products and features that they can access through a network that we will have available. Say the kind of know your supplier and AML checks that we do now with partners like Experian, but also in the future, cybersecurity, Darkbeamer, we're good friends with. We'd love to have them as part of our flow. And other checks, and at the moment with some other clients we do that for things like food safety or other kinds of health and safety checks before small suppliers come into buyers' sites. So kind of trying to find a balance there where you can make the process and the experience for both sides as easy and smooth as possible without creating extra expense or process for the sake of process.
Yeah, I really love that umbrella term, concept, and giving suppliers the ability to buy into something they wouldn't have access to without it. I think that's really in the marketplace concept is where this is going. Love that a lot. All right, so now let's flip that around. Kevin, you have, as a consultant, we have lots of consultants have come in to source tail spend every so often because it's largely unaddressed. And here you have come in and basically automated for all intents and purposes. And that I just absolutely love. Talk about how that process now changes and how we should think about this, especially as tail spend is just the starting point, as I would argue for you all. I think you can go much further up the tail into some of the strategic spend. Do you agree? Do you disagree? How are you thinking about it?
Yeah, absolutely. The way we're thinking about it is it's kind of like a people versus tech conversation. It's what should people be spending their time on? It's strategic initiatives that can't be automated. So for us, as we're taking a look at it, we're saying what can we do to drive more automation, drive more intelligence, and not just for the sake of doing it. But there's a lot of companies out there that are saying AI, ML, and then it's like, what is it actually doing? Is it, I call it like marketing fluff a little bit? Where for us, we're always trying to push the envelope of it's still working backwards from like, what are the business goals that the company's trying to get to? And it could be a business goal around cost savings, which is like the obvious black and white one. We're seeing a lot more around sustainability, around diversity, in terms of how do we drive more of the tail spend than the strategic spend to those vendors. It could be turnaround time. We have British Petroleum, that's their main thing. They want to get the goods and services back to their rigs. They're taking oil out of the ground faster and not have procurement drag the process out. So for us, kind of the way we look at it is like tail spend's gray area in general. It has this horrible stigma because everyone's kind of had like garbage in, garbage out. We don't have a line of sight to it. We don't know if it's hurting us or helping us. So like, that's like been the okay, acceptable answer in the market, which is just outrageous. Because there is a way now to get your arms around the data. I think fast forward to like 2022 plus, like that answer is going to be less and less acceptable at the C-suite of saying we don't know what's garbage in, garbage out data. In terms of how it's going to impact individual people and organizations, I think that really depends on what, in terms of what they want to source as well. It depends on what they're trying to drive towards. Where I think the big change that we see coming up would be it's not that people are looking to source just to save money. It's how does procurement align with the organization, and then how do you align the sourcing efforts to those organization goals. So agility is going to be very big when we're taking a look at like how do we toggle our algorithm, whether it is to invite a lot of suppliers that do bid at a very aggressive rate from a price, that they do bid with great turnaround times, and really fine-tuning it so you can use technology to get to those outcomes. And to answer your question of what you said before, it will go beyond tail spend, but I think like the idea of tail spend, it's slowly kind of like turning into even more gray area, where for us, we look at it as, once again, if you can automate it, automate it. If not, that's where you put people. So that's how we're kind of looking at the industry right now.
Excellent. And so BT Source has really done a great job at bringing innovation to the forefront and bringing you both into the garage. I'm trying to say garage.
Come on, give it a go. Garage. You know you can do it.
Garage. I'm giving you the Ted Lasso version.
Great show. Great show.
You knew that was going to get dropped at some point. So how do you think, so BT Source is at the sort of forefront of bringing in suppliers like both of you, or innovators like both of you into the fold. How do you work with other companies? Is it top down, bottom up? Where do you see innovation being brought into more traditional enterprises that don't have a Cyril and an Adam?
I think that's a really interesting question.
Go ahead, Natasha.
No, go ahead, Kevin.
No, all you.
Okay. I'm sure we're going to be singing from the same hymn sheet, Kevin. But I was going to say, I think top down is a great thing, right? Having the support of people like Cyril and Adam and a really awesome team of people who want to implement innovation and want to use new products and do new things. That's just the best possible situation you can be in. And we are always, we love working with BT. We're really excited to be working with them. As you say, though, it's not always the case that that is possible, and it can be that trying to take the approach of widespread, full-blown innovation in some companies, it will just create more change management process and will actually delay the very innovation that you're aiming for. So one of the other approaches we sometimes take is, looking at starting small and spreading organically, working with lower levels and incremental changes, starting with rolling out in one area of the business, showing success there, and then building up to widespread adoption throughout the business. So we really think that's a great approach as well. And depending on the organizational structure of the company you're working with, that can be the right way to go.
How about Kevin?
A lot of the same, but I'd say that the way that we really double down on is we look for companies that have a culture of innovation, and that culture starts at the top. So the way that we look at it, where we see our most successful customers, is that the executive team sets the goals of what are the OKRs that we're driving towards, and then they truly embrace and they believe in this culture of innovation that then gets communicated not just to empower their team, but to the entire organization. Because it really is impossible for an executive to go out and to evaluate all the different technologies, to be able to be in the weeds to understand what works for the process. So we've seen teams that do it well. They have different pockets where people are complete owners for the goal that they're trying to run towards, which also empowers them. And I think it brings out the best in people to really kind of go out on that limb and to look at new, innovative, exciting technologies and to know that it's okay to fail. It's okay to take chances. One other thing that does is usually organizations like that, they have a very good job of explaining the why. So why are we making all these changes? Why is this differentiating BT or differentiating XYZ as a company? And how is it driving us forward? We've seen that if that's communicated effectively, it makes these projects exponentially better because the whole organization knows that change is coming. They know that procurement's not going to sit there and just be a tactical, reactive function that just takes orders. It's that this procurement team is actually driving, pushing the envelope and actually creating business value, which I think empowers and gets everyone excited. Internally at Fair Market, we have a saying that if things aren't breaking, we're not growing fast enough, which for some people that's terrifying. Because what do you mean things aren't breaking? Well, it just means that if we're getting stagnant and we're just everything works perfectly, then we're not driving anywhere. We should always be looking to get to an additional level, to additional business goal, whatever additional output. And in order to do that, the way we look at it and the way our customers look at it is, okay, we know where we want to go. Our current tools, people, and processes get us maybe, I'm trying to get my hands on the screen, can't figure it out. Our current tools and processes get us to this result. So what you have is you have where you want to go, you have where you are today. So then what that creates is a gap. So that gap is what people are looking to address. And do you bring in people? Do you use a BPO or do you bring in new technology? That's how our customers are looking at it. And really just once again, that executive encouragement, it makes it fun because then people want to go out and they're excited to partner with procurement. Procurement's excited to partner with the end users, not scared that they're going to get that pushback of hey, this is my job or what are you doing? This is what we're doing as a company. This is our culture, and it's for the best of the company, our customers, and our whole community.
Well, exactly, Kevin. And I'm just going to jump in there because you've really hit the nail on the head. Is that we must not forget we're not deploying this technology just for the sake of doing technology. We have a customer. We're a procurement organization. Our customer is BT. It's the rest of the business, and so we're deploying this stuff for a very, very good reason. It's to benefit them. It's to, in the case of you guys, Fair Market, is to get a handle on that tail. And you know what? That comes back to the very first thing that you said just now, Eloise, at the beginning of the call, is you have those big end-to-end systems, which are great in that linear world of a process that has a start and an end. But in the source-to-pay world, we do the sourcing and you get a contract, you operationalize it, it's in then the purchasing systems and people buy against it. Well, why can't you challenge that buying at the end? You've put a contract in place for 3 years. Well, 3 years is a fairly long time, so 4 years, 5 years. You end up with tail stuff in there, you can challenge that. You can get in there and put that, these linear systems don't always have that feedback loop to be able to say, okay, let's source for that thing down there when it's being purchased at the point of purchase. But then the problem then comes again is that, okay, so maybe you deploy something like Fair Market and we put it in and it says, right, here's your options. You can, you can have it from this supplier or you can have it from another supplier cheaper. Well, what if that cheaper supplier isn't one of your existing suppliers? Well, that's great. Well, what can I do then? Go back to the first one and challenge them? And they know that you've raised a purchase request that you've intercepted. Your need is now. And you haven't got time to onboard a supplier to then push that bit of business to a new supplier because they know it takes weeks, maybe 2-3 weeks, maybe longer to do all the validations and the checks and get them onboarded to pay it. And that's where something comes together that we spoke about on the previous session. I know that Kevin and Eloise, you were probably very sensibly asleep at this point, but on the previous session, we started talking about the modularization and the composability of procurement systems and plugging these things together. And so, well, guess what? Well, wouldn't it be fantastic if then there was a tool, a system, a platform who could onboard things really quickly, Natasha? Wouldn't that be a good idea? So you could then take things, bid things out, get a cheaper price, but then be able to do those checks super, super fast to onboard it. And then you have the loop that comes back through. And so that's where these individual solutions don't just sit on their own. You have one that solves something, you have something that solves something else, but then bringing them together, you start getting the greater than the sum of the parts. That, for me, I start finding really exciting, and that, for me, is that digital frontier that we're all aspiring towards to solve for.
Yeah, I mean that is in essence that's what we've all been working towards. At least those of us that are pushing the boundaries on the digital frontier, which everybody at BT Source, the folks, Natasha, Kevin. I mean, I think we all want to see exactly that, Adam. That's what the aspiration is, which I think leads very nicely into. And Kevin, you said this is if you're not breaking things, then you're not working, you're not paraphrasing, but you're not doing it right. And so my question to you is what are you going to break next?
Ooh, good question. And real quick, to get to Adam's point, Adam, I fully agree. In terms of like the partnerships of working with other providers, it doesn't make sense to do it just for the sake of doing it. It makes sense to do it when we're looking to work to like a diversity or sustainability goal. And you figure out what pieces together get us to be able to work more and have that equal fair playing field with diverse or sustainable vendors. So that's where we can talk about later potentially, but that's an exciting piece. To your question, Eloise, what's next? So for us, the big push, and you kind of called out earlier, is absolutely taking a look at like, can we reduce the line of what tail spend versus strategic sourcing is? It's just sourcing. It's what can we automate? And then the next area that's really interesting, what Natasha's working on, is the payment side is just wildly archaic. It's wild that it's still operating the way it is at the enterprise level. If you look at the B2C versus B2B space, like very, very different. I think the one that's wildly neglected is the supplier side, which Natasha's digging into. I think it even goes a step further where even all the investment from a venture perspective you're seeing, say 90% of it's going towards the buy side. But as you said earlier, it's a two-sided marketplace. We need to optimize for both. So all this intelligence, automation, dynamic pricing, that needs to be done on the supplier side as well. And the supplier side is how it is. It's because procurement is so archaic. So because procurement is archaic, supply sides had to match that, which makes it like archaic in itself. So if we don't help out the supply side as well, we're not going to have that fluent and like perfect match of supply and demand, which is what we need to work towards. And then I think really the future state is the end user experience, where like for us, it's all about like, did you have a great end user experience on the buyer side and on the supplier side? And that's really where the industry should be going, like long term. With everything else in the middle, like being operated by procurement to set controls policies around how they want to source or how they want to sell. So that's how we're looking at it. Could change because things change very fast, but that's our current state.
Well, and
I think
Natasha, I want to ask you. Because go ahead.
Sorry, I'm being really bad at jumping in, but I love what Kevin was saying about the supplier side, making sure that suppliers are also having a good experience as part of the process. And what's interesting is that if we think about it, someone's supplier may also be a buyer. So we're talking about only looking at the buyer side, but actually there's a whole kind of chain, right? If you are a supplier to BT, you're going to be a buyer to other companies. You may not be on such a large scale, but the way we think about the environment that we have through the network of connecting buyers with the smaller suppliers is that eventually those suppliers in our community will also be buyers that could use our software to be purchasing themselves. So you have this kind of double-sided view of things. And with that in mind, that's why you need to be offering, exactly as Kevin was saying, an experience for the end users at both the buyer and the supplier side that is very smooth, very efficient, the way that allows them to put aside the process and focus on their relationships in business and doing the best possible work, providing the best possible services, or being perhaps the best possible customer to their suppliers to have to make sure those relationships work. And I think that we think about that also in the context of within the buying community itself. There's procurement, and then there's the business side as well. And if you can put in place a system where that buying process, that process from when you've chosen your supplier, you know who you want to work with, that you don't necessarily, there's this concept of permissionless procurement we hear about, where you can involve the business and procurement as the function doesn't have to do as much of the process and the compliance checking that they have had to do in the past as part of their role. And so they can focus on the strategic elements of sourcing and spend. And that process is sort of taken care of, a bit like Kevin was saying, where you can automate things rather than using people. You can do that, and then all of them, you can spend your time on more value additive and important things. So having something in place, some software in place, that means that you can have some more permissionless procurement with the business purchasing and not needing procurement as much. I think that's a really interesting place that we could go as well.
I love that permissionless procurement. I'm going to completely steal that, Natasha.
I'm writing that down too.
That's a great phrase, and this is something that we often forget about as a big organization, right? So people go and people want to buy stuff. That's great. They can go on the our ordering system. They can buy stuff and order it. That's absolutely great. But when we don't have a supplier for something, well, how do people know when to come to procurement and when not to come to procurement? And so this is the permissionless bit for the sourcing. To write that rule set which says, so if what you are wanting to purchase, what you're wanting to source for fits these criteria, you know what, you don't even have to come to procurement. You can either do the sourcing yourself in a safe environment, such as, I don't know, the fair markets or the globalities. We can federate the ability to do that out in a safe way if you fit these certain criteria. But even more interestingly, if you don't need a contract, every big company, we have purchase orders. Well, guess what? They have terms and conditions on the back of them. And really, the reason you need a contract is because something hits a certain level of risk that we need that extra protection in a contract. But what about all this tail stuff, which you don't? So write the rule set, publish it out to the company. There's permissionless procurement for the tail end stuff that it's safe to do. It's safe on the purchase order terms and conditions, which are there as standard. You can either source for it ahead of time in a safe way with the likes of the globalities or the fair markets or any of these other super consumer grade friendly user interfaces that people can use. Or even, don't even bother doing that. Just straight into go straight into the ERP system. Don't change your process. Don't touch the process. Have that frictionless existing process that's there that you're not interrupting. Let and then we'd automatically intercept with the technology and do the best thing through the technology that you've already alluded to.
So Natasha, you just won the day with that term, permissionless procurement. That's a winner right there.
No, I was just gonna to double click on that, and I wholeheartedly agree. We use the term we're saying like make it easy to do the right thing, and I think frictionless procurement even takes it a step further. We're to Adam, to your point, just making it very easy to do the right thing and to buy in the right way that is right for the end user and doing right by the business, and that could be compliance, that could be risk, that could be costs. But I think that's a really, really interesting concept that's going to continue to get better because that end user experience, as mentioned earlier, is so critical. And if we don't keep enhancing that, the B2C world is going to keep enhancing it. It's going to keep getting easier. So like the gap is only getting bigger in terms of B2B to B2C. So that needs to be an area that we, not just us, but like as a procurement industry, we focus on.
I really want to talk, can we, because we're getting close towards the end, I want to talk about automation, because this, I think, is a really big area. And Kevin, you all have really pushed the envelope, I feel, on automation. So can you talk about, because what I really said with my book, tried to set out, is this real? And I think you've really got the buy side automation. Can we talk about supply side automation or other automation that's sort of related to this?
Yeah. So I'll talk about the buy side first, and then I'll talk about the supply side, because I do agree that a lot of people talk about automation, but the question is, can you measure it? Because that determines like if it's real or not. So when we're taking a look at like data points and seeing companies that when we go in there, they're doing 70 sourcing events a year. And then with Fair Market, with the exact same team, they're doing 15,000 sourcing events a year. The exact same team, just a wildly increased throughput, like that's a good data point. When we're taking a look at companies that invite one or two vendors to a sourcing event, with Fair Market, even with their own internal vendors, they get to 5. And then if they use our network as well, there's 12.6 vendors or suppliers invited to every sourcing event. Once again, with the same team doing exponentially more throughput. So I think like from a time perspective, we've done a stopwatch test with the Harvard Kennedy School, where the actual effort to do a sourcing event used to be 40 minutes for our customers, and we've got to under 2 minutes, and some customers almost like complete near automation. So like that, when we think about automation, that's what we're thinking about. When we're thinking about the supply side, and admittedly, we haven't focused on it enough, but we want to deliver that same ability, where right now they're having a double key in. They're going from their quoting platform, their price book, they're going into different systems. They have to look at their historical price. They have all this manual work that's being done on their side, when in reality, that should be integrated. It should be set based off policies with, okay, like how much do we want to be able to have flexibility or dynamic pricing for this good, this service in this geo with this company. So I just think there's a lot more of those rule-based policies that you can build in. And then as you get that different data in our system, it's how do we present it back to those companies so they can actually act on it? Because right now, like they might get like one data point and then it's like here and there, it's across the board. But if we can go back and deliver the BI that we're delivering to our customers to the supply side, they can then go make strategic decisions on how they want to run their business, how they want to staff their sales team, how they want just their go-to-market in general, which is only going to help the end user experience for our buyers as well. So that's kind of when we're thinking about automation, that's the path we're going down.
Do you see an area where you can have automated buyer and supplier going back and forth?
Absolutely. Yeah. So that's the future. It's all based off of the buyer will identify how they want to buy, what's important to them. The supplier will do it the same way, because then what you start to have is instantaneous transactions that match up. And then what that delivers is a better experience for the end user because it's fast. It's very quick. There's a quicker turnaround time. So I believe that's the future.
Yeah, awesome. All right, now Natasha. So Adam was lining out the sort of procure to pay being this sacrosanct. Nobody needs to touch it. It's locked in, and it's all transactional. and again, we've talked about how you've disrupted that, and or augmented even and improved it. And one of the things I'd like to say is procurement. We're not order takers to the business. We are an equal part of the business. It's not about getting our seat at the table. And something you said a minute ago, and I wanted to circle back to, is the suppliers are not just suppliers; they're customers, especially as you work with bigger companies. And so, can you talk about how to think about? And you alluded to it, so I just want to double click on this. Is thinking about suppliers as customers and becoming the customer of choice.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the ways we think about that is trying to create the best possible experience for both the buyer side and the supplier side. I think Kevin was talking about that just now in terms of using automation to completely compress any time associated with basic process. So we have some similar statistics, things like 24 days of elapsed time to receipt an invoice from a supplier down to 111 minutes with clients we've worked with. So you have this idea that from a supplier perspective and their satisfaction, if we're thinking from the buyer side of being the best possible customer, that everything that they need to be a happy supplier. So they've done their job. They want to get paid in the smoothest possible process, and they don't want to have to go through, maybe 30 to 50 emails back and forth with their buyer contact to get there. We use our software to make sure that happens in the smoothest possible way. So we automate that process of receipting and then give suppliers the option with the support of the buyer side of getting paid immediately. So I think the way that our sort of philosophy around the buyer and the supplier relationship is to remove through automation and other tools available anything that is really considered an admin process to allow the relationship to be the most important thing. And then that in that way, the supplier side, small or large, feel enabled and as though they're being seen as a customer in the same way that the customer or the buyer is a customer, they're being the best possible customer. So you have that leveling of the playing field. I think Kevin said before, we also really believe in that phraseology and the equal opportunity concept, because as we've said, that supplier could be a customer. That's where we're coming from.
Awesome. Okay, now we're wrapping up, and I would be remiss if I didn't ask this question. What's the one thing you see on the horizon for 2022 and beyond? Not just with you all's companies individually. So, Kevin, let's start with you, and then I'll ask you, Natasha.
I'd say like two main themes. One is that end user focus I talked about. I just believe that's where it's going in terms of making sure that experience is strong. I think the next thing that we'll start to see more, because we are getting the data organized, is people challenging status quo more and challenging what they believe to be true that just isn't true. For example, like traditionally in procurement, you think, if you keep the sourcing event open for longer, you get more bids, more aggressive price point. We've proven across hundreds of thousands of sourcing events that if you go from 72 hours to 24-hour sourcing event, you get more bids back statistically and actually a more aggressive price point, because there's urgency on the bid. We see people that still have that mindset where, we don't want to work with diverse suppliers, or we're not sure if we do because we have to pay more, because it's a worse quality of service, it's a worse lead time. Where we're showing through data with our customers that that's just not the case. Is that you can work with sustainable and diverse suppliers and get an aggressive price point and get a great quality of service. And that's being unlocked by us enabling them and giving them the playing field, and then companies like Paid allowing them to actually do business and transact with these big companies. So I just think you're going to see a lot more of this like traditional, like, it's because it's always been done that way. Like that's going to be challenged, and we have data to support it now. So it's very hard to argue against data. So that's where I see coming up.
Yeah, awesome. Natasha?
Yeah, so I think I would echo Kevin when we think about what's the most important thing in the next couple of years is about actually utilizing the data that is or should be available within large corporations and small suppliers to do something useful and good with it. So we think about demystifying the long tail. So having that good data, I think Kevin was saying earlier, bad data in, bad data out. But if we can create an environment where we have this good data, then we can demystify what's happening in the long tail. So we can see price benchmarking coming up for both the buyer side and the supplier side, and then data on where people are spending money, who they're spending it with, and from a deep perspective. So you can look at, last month I worked with one of the teams within my institution worked with a photographer. They were really awesome, and no one would know about that in the other team that also needs a photographer, super niche thing that no one, they wouldn't necessarily cross paths otherwise. But because of having all this data and the ability to track it in an analytics dashboard, they can actually know that there is this supplier that might be available that they could use, they've used before, and they can know that they are top quality as well. So this concept that you have this data about not just what you're spending, but how good the suppliers are and who else might be out there. And I think on top of that, we also think about using that data to create efficiencies. So we are thinking about a compliance network. So we currently do a lot of onboarding checks and ID checks and so on. And suppliers have to do that every time they work for each of their clients, right? They need to be onboarded every time with often very similar information, just presented in a slightly different way. So if we could get to a point where we're facilitating that information to be stored in one place, so a supplier's onboarded to BT on our platform, and another large company wants to work with that supplier anyway, when they speak to that supplier through our platform, they already know all those checks have been done. So you're saving time, and again, making that better experience happen.
Natasha, did you say compliance network?
I did.
I think that. You are my hero. I think you have come up with two terms today that it's going to be like the thrust of my next book. So I love that. But what I really like is both of you just rattled off a whole bunch of statistics on the data, the real use data that is changing how we do procurement. And if I've heard one thing, I'm going to have to drag the source to pay providers again, but bad data. I hear about bad data, dirty data, and what both of you just rattled off, and you're the co-founders of your companies. You rattled off these data points. You have real data, real world examples, and this is what tells me that we have hit that inflection point, that we're changing. We are the function within the enterprise that is the coolest. I think now is the greatest time to be in procurement, and I say that all the time. And listening to both of you talk about these statistics, it's like I couldn't even write them down fast enough. But I'm like, this is it. That is it. That's proving that we have arrived in this next generation. So I see that we are out of time. Adam, any closing comments, or Amy?
It's kind of okay to overrun a little bit. I have to confess, I did put a little bit of I put a shorter bit on the clock for this session because we're going through the previous ones, and I thought, maybe 45 minutes might be optimal. So we did kind of put a little bit of a shorter time just to see if that were better. But so we're fine to overrun a little bit if we need to. But for me, it's interesting. We spent a lot of time talking about the tail, right? And for me, we shouldn't demonize the tail. There's nothing wrong with it. You're always going to have a tail. What's wrong is not understanding it. Yeah, that's the real problem. It's number one, not understanding what the stuff is. Kevin, you had a great phrase earlier as well. We give Kevin some credit for having a good phrase on this session, not just all to Natasha. But he said, making it super, super easy for the people to do the right thing. You can flip that on its head because we all know there's bad behaviors in the organization. Yeah, there's always trying to treat P2P as an escape room. Yeah, people do that. To put it another way, what I want to do is make it super easy for people to do the wrong thing, so they don't even have to try. We put a system in place which is so easy that they don't have to try and hide anything. We say, here's your misdemeanors, your bad behavior, you're putting things through and not quite doing it properly. Well, here is a super easy route for you to do that. so we can monitor it, so we can get the data from it, so we can understand exactly what it is you are doing, more importantly, why you're doing that thing, and we can run the transformation with the numbers. Because, Eloise, you know as well as I do, that transformation by anecdote is an utter recipe for disaster. It has to be the real numbers. We have to get the facts, the figures, understand it. So don't demonize the tail. Don't demonize any of it. Understand it. Get the facts, the figures, the data points, and go through and structurally and programmatically fix the stuff. And always remember that we're doing this for the business. There is a reason for doing this, and so that's the kind of side of it from me. But we have also been, somebody has sneaked in next to me actually. So there we go. Cyril is.
We're totally off script now.
Yeah, we're totally off script, and there's Kevin that said something. So we have to break stuff. We have not broken enough stuff, Adam. So we have to break more stuff and to create a digital chaos. So that's what we have to do.
There is. That's exactly what Harmeen was saying in your conversation with her. We should not be afraid of breaking stuff for the right reasons, because sometimes that's the only way that we're really going to understand what's the problem, what are we trying to do.
I will, straight after this meeting, I will go and buy you a digital hammer so that you can break more stuff.
I can't help but look at the shoes again. You just turn your shoe a little bit that way.
Yeah.
BT Source trainers.
Nice.
We see your fair market shirt and we raise you a pair of trainers, Kevin.
Well, I'll trade you there. And I think one thing, Cyril, in terms of just like the idea of wanting to break stuff, it also goes back to the culture side of it, where it's almost like having fun with it. Not the idea of like you're getting like pleasure out of like breaking things, but the idea that it's exciting. And that creates the brand for procurement inside an organization where if it's exciting, it's fast paced, it's moving the business forward, people want to be part of it. Where if it's viewed as this like stuffy kind of back office, like we're here to say no and put up roadblocks, like that's what's been the last 30 or 40 years. And we see other departments around the organization that are kind of shifting their brand. And that's where Greg Tennyson, his previous roles, formerly at Salesforce, he was at Oracle, VSB Global, he made procurement fun. He had like a mascot that he would take around the office, like a procurement mascot. So I think that's a big piece of it. Final thing I have to toss.
Yeah, and actually, Kevin, so if I may, so to paraphrase someone well known, so meaning that we're making procurement cool again.
Making procurement cool again. It's just having fun with it. I do have to note our team will be, for the BT Source team, we'll be in Dublin the week of the 11th, and please reach out to Simon Fowles if you want to meet with our team too. I just want to make sure I threw that plug in there.
Can I just finish with one last question?
Oh, yeah, please, because we have. I'm sorry, Amy, we completely forgot to just say the questions that have been coming in.
No worries. It's just one last question. So, I mean, it's an important one for me as a new starter into BT Sourced. I bought completely 100% into the journey, if you can't tell by the T-shirt. So one of the things about BT Sourced is we're trailblazing. We're a startup culture. So as a quick question, what's the one thing that you would do to make sure that you can maintain and create this trailblazing entrepreneurial environment? Eloise?
Without a doubt, I think, and I mean, in the interview said this, it's culture, and it's this startup culture. It's fun. It's some of us, at least Cyril and I, grew up in an era where procurement, people just ended up there, and it was like a backwater or kind of place. You didn't seek it out. Now it's. I mean, I look at the innovation that Kevin and Natasha and all the other folks in the garage, are there. It's so cool and it's so exciting, and you see it like LinkedIn is just blowing up with all of this innovation. So I think it's culture and that facilitating that culture and enjoying it. Like I think everybody here, I mean, we've gone off script because we all love this stuff and are having fun. So that's my short answer.
Ben, over to you. Kevin?
Sorry, that's me. I couldn't tell. I was trying to look down at who she's pointing to.
Just point that. It's you.
Yeah, no, I mean the biggest one that we try to emphasize is make decisions fast. And for a lot of companies that we work with, like large organizations that I see are like the absolute opposite of us as a startup, is they try to get 100% of the data points before they make a decision and look to consensus against like 1,000 people. Where in reality, for a lot of these decisions, if you have 85% of the data, if you have a plan in place, you know what you're working towards, and you have a why behind it, then just go. And that's what we do as a business. It's like let's make a matrix of reversibility, irreversibility, impact of the value of the decision, and then just go and make the decision, empower people to do it, not just at the top, but all the way down the chain. So I think that's what like we try to push on people is like we're here to support you and help you to guide you on the journey. But if you need 100% of the data points, then you're not going to get it. Not like in procurement, in any aspect of growing a business. So it's fast decision making is big.
Oh, God, exactly. If you're stood in a shop, and if we were stood in a shop, Kevin, and I said, you buy that next lottery ticket, is an 80% chance that it's the winning one. Are you going to stand there and discuss it with anyone, or are you just going to buy it?
I'm in. Yeah, 100%. I'm a big fan of lottery. Haven't won yet.
There is less than an 80% chance of winning. I just put that out there.
Yeah, it's 1 out of 200 million. But you know what? You still got to take it. Natasha?
Yeah, great. So I love both of your answers, Eloise and Kevin. I think culture and making decisions quickly are super important for maintaining that kind of startup environment. And one of the ways we think about it, which I guess is actually complementary to what you've both said, because we believe in both of those things as well, is that everyone in the company for us has a voice, and we believe in a flat management structure. So we allow people to sort of really live their roles and what they're doing, so that I guess it feeds into the idea that you can make decisions quickly because you don't have to go to multiple people to approve your decisions, and that you shouldn't be afraid to fail, because we're giving you that responsibility, but we're also supporting you in a way that you don't have to feel like that responsibility is overwhelming and too much of a burden, because we all share in the successes and failures of the company. So creating, I guess, that culture helps us to be able to move fast and make those decisions.
Love that.
Natasha?
Oh, what, you want to ask me the same question? Good as me. I mean, look, you believe in yourself. Believe that, you're employed by a company for a reason. You are empowered for a reason. Don't doubt yourself. Make the decision. You're hired there to make the decision. You're not hired to go and ask 10 people and then take the average weighting. It's you. Accept the responsibility, be empowered, make the decision, and don't dwell on things for ages. If you've got, as Kevin says, if you've got 80% of the information, that is plenty for that next step. There's an 80% chance, 90% chance that it's the right thing to do. So, move swiftly, believe in yourself.
Thank you, Adam. Hate to say it, Cyril. I'm going to put you on the spot too.
So I'm on the spot right now, and it's a very difficult question indeed, especially because I'm managing this team and managing this company, so everything will be recorded, and No, just coming back on something which has been said just earlier on the top-down. It's maybe actually, and you were saying that, Natasha, saying that you're allowing people to fail as well, so meaning that, and what we're trying to do is not really to be top-down, so it's much more like, so there's a vision, so sharing the vision, and then after that, so if people are adhering to the vision, so they will do great stuff. And I would say the event that we have today, it's a very good example. So meaning that Adam and the team, Alex, Amy, so all the team that organized this, I just said I want an event. And then they came with absolutely everything. So Michael find the picture, the title and everything. So it's a, we just sharing the visions, sharing actually the direction as well, and let's the team doing it.
Well, I think I don't know how far over time we are, because some time ago it got to 0, but it must be time to just wrap up and say that Eloise, Kevin, Natasha, huge thank you to taking your time up, getting up crazy early in San Francisco, less crazy early in Boston, but I see you got a massive cup of coffee there, and it's London for you, Natasha, so it's the same time zone. It's
and the great news actually is, so for those in the US, so they can already watch everything that we have done today on our platform.
Exactly, because all of the stuff we've done today, it's straight away live. You know that sort of 3D world, you guys have seen it, that beautiful 3D world that we put together for this. All of the recordings are on demand, live there, fully on to go ahead and watch if you missed them earlier. So, but no, it's been great to have you. Thank you very, very much for taking the time out. And Cyril, there we are, an end of 2 days. Yesterday was in the kind of the big company internal thing, bringing everybody together, and today are external.
Yeah, external, something that we, and we were speaking just about the startup culture. So it was a big bet for us as well, so meaning this event, and especially usually when you're doing internal events, it tends to stay internal. But for the second day, we said, no, let's go external and let's share with the rest of the world what we're doing, and as well having panel like the one that we have right now, so meaning that's joining us, sharing what is the future of procurement, what are the various models as well that can be applied to procurement. So let's see if we made the right bet. I don't know if we won to the lottery, but at least we tried. If we failed, we failed. If we have been successful, so it will be absolutely amazing. So that's so thank you very much, Adam. Thank you very much, Amy. Thank you very much to all of you, and as well all the team here in Dublin that worked on this project. So it was a great event. Extremely proud of what we have achieved. And stay tuned because it's just the very beginning of the adventure.
Excellent. Thanks, Cyril, and thank you enormously everybody who's been watching, who's tuned in throughout the day. As I said, everything that we've put out today, it's there available. That amazing 3D world that it's on LinkedIn. You'll see it posted from Cyril, from I. Go there, watch the on-demand stuff as well if you missed it earlier. Amazing to see everybody tuning in. Thank you to all of our teams around the world in the 28 different countries that we're in, who I know have been watching it as well.
Exactly.
Hopefully, you guys have enjoyed this enormously, and we will be doing this again in the future. I'm utterly convinced of that.
No doubt. Thank you.